Our top story at this hour. Later in the day, following the bilateral meet, U.S. President Joe Biden will host 3 Quad partners at the White House: India, Japan and Australia. 7 months after a virtual meet, the Quad partners will meet for the first ever in-person meeting. Experts say 2 meetings of the leaders of a multilateral group within less than a year is an exceptional development in world affairs. The crucial Quad meet is set against the backdrop of a range of issues grappling the Indo-Pacific region, including repercussions of Afghanistan, an aggressive China, and the AUKUS partnership. The agenda of the Quad summit is clear: an open and free Indo-Pacific, the coronavirus pandemic, the manufacturing and supply of COVID vaccines, addressing the climate crisis, and also partnering on emerging technologies and cyberspace. Early in July, Biden's Indo-Pacific coordinator, Kurt Campbell, had said that the long-planned in-person meeting should bring decisive commitments on vaccine diplomacy and infrastructure. Japanese media has stated that any talks between the 4 countries would likely also touch upon Afghanistan, as well as offer a chance to present a united front before a G20 meeting in Rome in October. The summit is being seen as a challenge to China. The high-level meeting comes a few days after the United States and Australia, along with the United Kingdom, announced the AUKUS deal. The aim of this deal is to contain Beijing's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. Under the AUKUS deal, the US will provide Australia 8 nuclear-powered submarines in an effort to boosting Australia's naval powers. John Blaxland is a professor of international security and intelligence studies. Let's talk more about what to expect in the upcoming Quad summit. John is joining us live from Canberra. John, good to see you and thank you very much for joining us at this hour. The nations that make up the Quad have consistently asserted their grip in the region. They say the grouping is durable and here to stay, even despite the formation of AUKUS. What do you make of this statement?
Look, I think there is an enduring utility to these 4 countries collaborating with one another. And I think there is a little bit too much emphasis on kind of the militaristic rhetoric. There is certainly a security dimension to the Quad, but there is, I think, a degree of healthy competition that comes with these 4 countries collaborating in working to develop vaccines and share vaccines around the Indo-Pacific, to collaborate on technology, to collaborate on counter-terrorism, and to also explore a range of other issues. It's actually, I think, very constructive for Australia and India to be collaborating more. In the past, there's been a paucity of issues that have connected Australia and India, apart from cricket and things like that. We actually haven't had that much cause to collaborate. And what we're realising is that crisis presents an opportunity, and the challenge of China's rise has kind of laid down a bit of a challenge for India and Japan and the United States and Australia to respond, and actually not just militarily respond, but respond in terms of outlook and engagement and aid and development and technology. And I think that, by and large, is a good thing.
John, let's talk about that challenge that you mentioned. Some observers argue that Quad is still finding its footing, especially on its goal to crush China. And actually, some nations within the group fear that their onslaught on China could threaten their intricate ties with Beijing. What does Quad need to do to strengthen itself in the region, you think?
So it's not an alliance. It has a security dimension, particularly through exercise Malabar, the naval exercise that's been organised by India in the Bay of Bengal usually, but also in other ports of India. But there's so much more to this, and it's interesting. One of the points of rhetoric that's coming out of Beijing now is about this being some kind of militarist push to challenge China. And I think it's meant to intimidate would-be collaborators with the Quad, particularly in Southeast Asia and Korea and elsewhere, who might be thinking, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to work with the Quad. Beijing is putting out some very adversarial rhetoric in relation to the Quad with a view to undermine its efficacy and utility, I would contend. So I think it's important that the four countries in the Quad recognise its limitations. It isn't an alliance. These four countries are culturally different. They have different interests. They have different geostrategic circumstances. India faces a nuclear-armed Pakistan and a nuclear-armed India. It faces off on the line of actual control in the Himalayas. That's not a challenge that presents itself to Australia. Japan's challenges are different as well. It's facing challenges in the East China Sea, not necessarily on any land borders. So, but there's a complementarity to our ambitions to rise to the occasion, to not just watch the BRI happen and not engage in trying to match or respond in a way that actually is in the interests of others in the neighbourhood as well. What the BRI is doing is clearly seen by many as being a productive and a useful mechanism, but it is something that is clearly advantageous for China, and good on them, good luck to them. But I think my point is that we should not just cede the ground entirely to them and concede their kind of dominance in the space. We should be looking to compete, not in an adversarial way necessarily, but in a way that is in our interests. And what we're seeing is that the overlap of interest being greater now than ever.
Finally, John, let's focus on the future of the region. Will this much-awaited summit give a clear indication of why India needs to maintain its relationship with the Quad and commitment to its vision for Asia, you think?
I think it will. These kind of summits, it's the first of its kind. These four national leaders actually meeting in person and not just on a screen like you and I are now, Eric. But I think it's important for that to happen. Relationships between human beings, between national leaders are reinforced and validated to a certain extent by the interpersonal relations that take place on the sidelines of these, the dinners, the drinks, the conversations that are facilitated by meeting in person. And I think there is an opportunity for these four countries to explore anew, beyond the issues that have already been addressed, to find common ground. There are real issues of concern affecting the Indo-Pacific that these countries can help on, and they relate to the pandemic, responding to vaccinations, to climate change, and to governance issues, piracy, drug smuggling, people smuggling, law and order challenges, and in addition, of course, to the issue of great power contestation. So there's a lot of areas where they can collaborate. There are many challenges that are not about China that these four countries can collaborate together to make a difference for the good of us all into the future. And I think that's a pretty exciting opportunity. And we should not be put off by the rhetoric, the adversarial rhetoric coming out of Beijing that would want to minimise its consequence, minimise its significance, and minimise its future prospects.
John Blaxland, thank you very much for your insights and for talking to WION.